This is a demo of the new level generation system for Folktale. So right here we have the basic setup for it. All it takes is a game object that will host the level generation. It can be an empty game object, and you just put on the sprite shape builder. What this will do is this will end up building the entire level, including POIs, not just the sprite shapes. What it will do here is we can choose our zone size. This will be the size of the randomly generated areas. We can have the amount of variance that area can be. This will be positive variance, so it's only going to extend by that amount. So you know that your minimum will always be this number here. We also have the ground platform. We can choose what type of sprite shape we're going to use. Now, it's used as an entire game object because the game object needs to be pre-built in a specific way for the system to be able to use and run with correctly, because it basically assumes it's going to be in a specific shape when it starts. Nothing complicated, pretty much just a box. Next is we have platforms. This will probably end up getting removed in a next update, because when we start to add decorations are going to be taking the place of randomly generated platforms, as the decorations themselves will be hopefully tied into the actual platforms, so that the decorations also have a feel in the game world, and that our platforms aren't just floating, they're tied to the game and to the background as well. We have an array right here. This will be what kind of start you want, so you can build multiple different starts to a level. We can have multiple different POIs. These could be a church that might have like a puzzle inside of it you need to do, or a combat arena. It could be anything. It could be a giant pitfall, even, for the world. You can have just a pitfall that basically drops down. We could put a kill box in the bottom of it. It doesn't really care. It just needs a game object, and it needs to know a few other pieces of information. I'll get to show you how that's stored in a second. And it's stored the exact same way for each of them. They're set into different ones because obviously you're going to want an exit and no beginning to a start, so that way you can not jump out the ends of them. Then we have the weighted curve settings here. We can build multiple curves. That way, when it's going in to build the world, it can either use the same requirements for each curve with its own variance inside of those, or we can have another curve, and that will allow for different types of curves in a single generated area. Node frequency and the node variance, that might get moved around actually a little bit. We'll see about that. I might get separated out from the curve settings. For now, it's working perfectly fine. Next, I'll show you how this works. This is obviously, it's blanked out right now because it is not checked into this current build as it was published in a prior build. I can show you how it works. It uses a exit point and bottom left and a bottom right. These are basically the coordinates relative to the entrance of the object of the POI. The entrance being at 0, 0, 0. And it'll basically give this information to the level generator so that it knows how to build around, so that you don't have any gaps under your POIs and the entire terrain underneath of it textures smoothly underneath of it. It just will look like it's sunk into the ground, which allows you to also build pits, or essentially away mountains, or things on top, like built well up. And it works for all those. To build those, you just would click here, go to create, you go to Folktale, level gen, and then just create a POI. That's just how that works. It's easily drag and drop and creatable. For your POIs, you just have your game objects. You just drag them into whichever one you want. These are just separate. These are all the same. They're just separated into these areas for ease of use for the designer. The sprite shape, I'll pull that in to show what it looks like. Yeah, I can pull it in to show what it looks like. If I zoom in on it, because it's actually just very, very small. What this is right now is, if I turn it off of it, making it open, we'll see it's just it's just 4 points with the opening on the left side. That's all you have to do. Just build one just like this, and that game object will be good. The reason we do it as a game object is it will have the renderer and the collider already built on it and already be set up. Saves a lot of time on the code. You just have to build one ahead of time. And to make it even easier, you could copy this entire game object, put a new sprite shape in that you want to use for your new level generation, for your new art. Just drop it in to the prefabs, save it as a new prefab. You wouldn't have to set all this stuff up. Once it's set up once, you can just clone it and then kind of edit it and make a new one. So simple enough to edit there. The POI folder, that's just the script for this. It's very small. It's just a couple of public variables. Those are for the scriptable objects. And then we have that's our closed sprite shape. We have the sprite shape builder, which is all of the code for building the levels. And how it works, we'll show how it works right now. Let it load. There we go. Now it's going to start in the back here. You're not going to see that when you're playing. See where we actually are. There we go. So one thing that's going to probably have to happen that I'm foreseeing right now is we're going to have to end up inside of these. I might have to include another variable for spawn point for the start ones, that we know where to spawn the player. That or leave the starts consistent so that the player would always spawn in the same spot relative to world space generally. I think it'd be easier probably and more consistent to actually put the spawn point connected to the start. Next, we have, this is just how it starts. It starts the first thing here, builds it out to the corner, and I will actually come to this thing and pull on, edit the sprite shape so we can see all the nodes. You can see how it works is it has the first one here, goes to here, then builds down, goes under the entire POI, the edge of the POI comes up and then goes over. And this POI is made of sprite shape actually. So you can have a sprite shape, it comes down to the curves, goes up. These are actually relatively clean. I'll have to figure out how to fix a small bug where these are set to be continuous instead of linear, which would be like that. So they were built as linear, and then I switched them to continuous. But you'll notice continuous being set up like this gives us curve, whereas continuous otherwise, from how it's doing, does some weird stuff. It fixes most of the visual problems associated with the spikiness. So if I want more spiky level, I might just keep however this weird kind of visual bug is. But I'll have to figure out a way to get it to do this, which doesn't seem to work through code. It seems to be some weird bug that it doesn't update. So we'll see what's going on with that. But other than that, it leads to, I'll have to do a little bit more editing just to figure this out, but I'm waiting on art, and this is not very important right now. These all have colliders as well. Turn off the render. We turn that off. We should see the controller, because I have gizmos off. There we go. You can see the colliders right along the edge. That's real good. That's working correctly. I'll just have to come in and edit this a little bit, make sure that these points are placed in a way that lines up more correctly with these edges. But this is first pass, and it's in working order now. We'll zigzag and continue to do the distance. Each one will be the distance you set, along with, of course, your variance. And then get to the final POI. The system right now only doesn't let you choose how many POIs. I can actually probably easily fix that in the second pass, but for now, this is the milestone where we have our start, our middle, and our end, as was. So that's pretty much the entire system. It does, all these are placed dynamically. We load it again, we'll see a different level design. Our POIs will stay the same. There's only one of each POI right now in the system, but we can see we got a vastly different set of terrain. And this is still using the same configuration for our curve settings, but we're getting vastly different options even within those parameters. But to forgive the camera snapping there, this editing scene, not an actual gameplay scene. And so yeah, it works quite well. It even fills in the bottom, so it should hide the bottom of the world. You should be able to see under the world with the camera. Yeah, that's the entire world generation now. Minus art, of course. This is just a design thing, and it's working perfectly fine. So it works great.